He's not saying that the
Because-
taller you are, the better you are automatically. But being tall helps more than being short when it comes to a game where you have to put a ball
depends on the
through a
style.
hoop that's 10 feet up in the air.
I was raised and grown up if you were born with a penis, and to this day, doctors.
I just want to know what you think, not how you were
I'm getting
raised.
there. To this day, they still would tell you, "Oh, you want to know if it's a boy or a girl when you go get your ultrasound." And how do they tell? Penis or vagina.
So that is becoming an outdated thing too.
So
Just
that is becoming an
FYI.
outdated. No, that is. So
You
It,
can't.
it is becoming an outdated thing. I mean, like the whole Pucho's touched on this before. Raising your kid where they make their own gender decisions is definitely a thing. I think at some point, like, you have to make some kind of decision, and you have to be willing to change your mind and be open to future circumstances changing. Like, obviously, Pucho's daughter has a feminine name.
you can't say that. though.
I would well, no, but
No,
it is feminine.
you can't say that, because if we're going off this little road talking about the kids got to make the thing, Pucho's daughter is not a daughter. Pucho's child.
Nope.
You got to say child.
no,
at this
you're
point,
missing
right?
the
If that's how
point.
y'all want to play the game.
No, you're getting distracted by the point before I get there. Like, you're assuming what the point is going to be. I would assume, knowing the way that Pucho is as a person. Notice I didn't say as a man, just as a person.
Yeah, I'm
knowing the way
following.
Pucho is. If his daughter were to tell him tomorrow, "Hey, I don't think I'm a girl," I would assume Pucho would be 100% supportive of that. He'd also be very surprised that his daughter's talking to him in complete sentences about issues like gender role and
A year
like.
and a half.
But
yeah.
I would expect that, and that's what you have to do. You, like, the entire point of these gender conversations is just to be open-minded and willing to have the conversation, and not lock yourself into a definition like a man has a penis and balls and boom, done. That boom, you're a man. Like, let me knight you with a cock-shaped sword or something.
So so then it goes to the, what do you identify then? That what you're saying? Nowadays it's not. So if you go to the hospital or go to the doctor and they tell you, "Hey, how would you go about that?" Right? My wife's pregnant. She go find out what the sex is of the baby. Now it's not about the sex. Now it's about, like, what do you want to identify your child as? Like, how do we go about that?
I think that there is absolutely such a thing in 90+% of people. There is such a thing as your biological sex. Like, what you're born as is absolutely 100% a thing, and it can be a medically important thing. Because there are, I mean, you're not going to give a hysterectomy to someone that was born with male genitalia.
So that's
like that's not a medical consideration.
So that's my point. So
Even
then,
that statement is very loaded, because he's saying male genitalia, but that's how the people that have done the work and categorized that work, that's how they've categorized it. That doesn't mean that is what it is.
so let me ask you.
That's also a very complicated, like, thing, is that we've decided to pluck certain characteristics and said that characteristic is what categorizes you with this side of things, and this is what categorizes you in this other side of things. And I feel like the ultimate point of this is when I asked you a very simple question, from my opinion, a very simple question of what happens if someone's born with no genitalia, you don't even know how to categorize that person anymore. I think that illustrates why we shouldn't have strong opinions about these things, that we should be a little bit more open to the fact that these things aren't clear cut, because there are people that are born with no genitalia. Some people like to go to the chromosome levels. There's men that are born with female chromosomes, which are XX, I believe. There's XY, there's XXY, there's XYY, there's XXXY. Like, there's so many different ways that chromosomes align themselves, and those people identify as something, and doctors categorize them as something regardless of their chromosomes. So then it's not just the chromosomes that do it. There's just a lot of factors at play that comes into this. So, I mean, it even gets even crazier where, like, I feel like there's been more than one, but there's one that I recall, a case of like a botched circumcision where someone went to circumcise a kid who was born with a penis. they circumcised that kid, and they accidentally cut his penis off in the middle of the circumcision. And then they had a decision to make. Are you going to live the rest of your life without a penis? Or we could just convert this to a vagina, and then you'll just live your life as a female.
But okay, so that's my problem there, right?
Well, what do you mean? What's your problem?
Medically, right?
Medically,
You botched
what
a
does that
penis, and now you're telling the parents to decide a boy without a penis or a girl, or make them into a girl, right? Medically, right?
What does medically mean?
Medically, you go to the doctors, and if that person was a boy, right? And
Sorry, medically a boy? What does that mean? Is what my question.
You say the doctor botched the child's circumcision, right? The boy.
You're saying medically there's something. I'm asking what does medically
trying to get
mean?
there.
What is
You're
medically
just like not defining a term. I don't know.
Your internal organs, right?
Okay, so someone like a female born with ovaries.
So biologically, or like
the identification, right? A girl is, as of right now, a female is born. They have a uterus. They can
and ovaries. Right.
They can birth child. Men can't do that. So if you take
one, but continue.
So
don't worry. Just go ahead.
So if you continue down this path, right? Let's say I say no. I identify as a female now. I am not a man. I'm a woman. And then I go to the doctor, and they tell me, well, okay, yeah, you're a female. We identify you as a female, but you have a testicular cancer. I don't have testicular cancer because I'm a female.
No one is actually doing this conversation with the doctor that you're having, because they are fully aware that they still have, if that's the situation, they're fully aware that they still have their testicles, but the testicles are not what define them as a male or a female. They understand. No one thinks that there's a magic wand like me right now. Let's say I was like, I identify as female now to y'all. Do y'all think there's a fucking magic wand?
No,
that gets
I'm not
waved
saying
and
that.
Boom,
I'm not saying
suddenly
that.
I've got no
I'm
testicles.
saying that.
So I'm gonna go into the doctor tomorrow, and I'm gonna be like, hey, I think I think that it's my time of the month. I've been getting these terrible headaches. No, because that's not the way it works in anyone else's mind.
So when you guys want to identify kids or unborn kids, right? Unborn children, and you're saying that, it's kind of wrong to just say this what makes a man, this what makes a female, but your natural body organs is how they identify you as a male or a female. Why do you take that away now?
I think that is the start of the conversation right there. I think you have to be open to it. If your child decides at some point in the path of your development that they want to go a different route or no route, let's say they want to be genderless, let's say they want to be non-binary, or let's say sometimes they feel feminine and sometimes they feel masculine. I think gender is a conversation.
No, I'm not disagreeing. If your child feels like they want to change,
I think your question is flawed.
Yes,
because it's complicated, right? Like there is, and some people would say this is made up as of the last decade, right? But there is gender and there's sex. And for many, many years, when I say many years, I'm talking about thousands of years, we have viewed this, right? Like, think about when you say, talk to me like a man. What does that mean? That's what I'm trying to understand. That has nothing to do with whether you were born with a cock or not.
100%.
Yeah.
You're saying talk to me in a manner in which men talk. What does men mean in that sentence?
Yeah, what does a man talk like?
Right. So that's one aspect of that. That's gender. That has nothing to do with what you were born with.
Yeah, we got hung up on
agreeing that
biological
gender.
sex.
Right. We got hung up on biology, which is more complicated, I think, than gender. Far more complicated. Because it's only of like the last 10 years or so that we even realize that the way that we categorize biology is also just not accurate.
Why is that?
If you want to, oh my God, there's a podcast, Radiolab, literally one of the biggest podcasts in the entire world. They have a series called Gonads. When you say the word gonads, you think of it as men. Gonads are balls, right? That's what you think of?
Not really.
Well, that's what everybody on planet Earth thinks of, but that's not accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
I
Women
looked
have
up
gonads.
I looked up that word because of that song "Gonads and Strife." If you remember that from the early days of the internet,
I do not remember.
it was a squirrel singing. It's terrible. It's real bad. I'll tweet it out whenever I put this video link up. I'll
Yeah.
tweet out that video with it.
But long story short, women have gonads. In English, when people say gonads, we're talking about like when someone says where are your gonads, they're asking where are your cojones? What's a fucking cojone? That's a ball.
it's
Your
balls,
balls. Where are
yeah.
your loins? Where's your guts? That's what they're asking you. Act like a man, and that's just it's just not accurate because women have gonads. And then this series on Radiolab, they go into why, even biologically, trying to separate a woman from a man is a very complicated thing. It's just not clear cut. Because initially, we would say it's just you have a penis, you got a vagina. Then people found these chromosomes and they were like, oh, there's XX and there's XY, and that's what separates you. And then you find that there's people there's a wide spectrum of chromosomes, that there's people that have XX that are born with a penis. And you go, how the fuck is that possible?
And to toss this, and
could
to
you
toss
say
this
that's
in a Pucho's
a
point here
deformity?
as well. To toss this in a Pucho's point here as well. He's talking mostly specifically for Western society, because I know that there were lots of like Native American and like First Nation tribes that had multiple genders. Like the idea that there were two genders was a crazy, crazy thing to them, because there were people that were in between. I forget, there's a term for them. I forget what the term was in a lot of these tribes, but there was a term for people that were in between genders. And this is a common thing that you see going back, like I think in Greece, that there was a thing like it's everywhere.
Japanese culture, geishas have been men.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard of any of this, so that I find that interesting.
There's so many societies that they recognize that there were more than two genders, like because there's infinite genders.
So could you
Maybe I'm
say
just
that
a
having
Western man, I've naively just thought there's a penis in their vagina, so we've just viewed two things.
So could you say
I've got a girl that I'm fantastic friends with, and she feels like she has like 3 different genders, maybe 4, because sometimes she's neutral, and sometimes she's got a persona where it's like her take charge and be super butch like persona, and then like she's I don't know, she feels like she has several personas and genders inside of her depending on the energy she needs to generate at that particular moment.
So could you say that that's a deformity in the chemical imbalance in humans when they're born, having XX or YYs? Like, could you say that's some type of and mind you, I'm not trying to disrespect. I'm literally asking a question.
It's a valid question.
Like, is that a deformity based on what we ingest or eat or chemicals that we take in throughout the year that causes this shit now? Because I guess, or maybe back in the days we didn't have the studies or the technology to really break down chromosomes and all this. Like,
think about it. There's been Joan of Arcs. There's been many women in the past that have taken up men's roles and have like defined them. And it's a woman that does this. That is in what's the woman, the one in World War II, the something of Arc or something like that.
Oh no, you're talking some middle-aged shit. Now Joan of Arc, that's the Crusades.
Okay.
But no, you're right. That's a woman leading people on battlefields, and she's putting on armor and killing dudes with a sword. Like, and she was a woman, but she was filling the role of a man. And I'm for the audio people, I'm making big fucking quotes here. Because what is a man and what is a woman is a complicated thing. It's a shame that Tony got up to walk away, because we're kind of in the midst of not changing anybody's mind, but just illustrating how complicated it is to define these things. So, like, a lot of people like to go down to the testosterone level, even right,
which is a crazy route to go. It's such a crazy route to go.
What was it? There's a runner. I don't know. If she's
the woman, right?
or-
And they said that her testosterone levels were too high
she's
for her to compete against
Indian, right?
female.
She's from India. She's from India.
I don't remember the specifics, but
She
I know
was
that.
fucking smashing records left and right.
But I know
on
they
par with men.
but they
and
got it.
people
They got into her.
calling her a man.
They got into her testosterone levels, and they were like, "No, obviously you were born a hermaphrodite or something. You got some.
Wow.
You got some funky biology where you can't compete with other women." And like,
That's fucked up.
And just for the record, as far as I'm aware, that's a person that was born with a vagina and breasts, which for as far as Tony cares, that makes them a woman. And she has the right chromosomes, and I say right as a loaded term to say the ones that align with what makes someone a woman, which is XY or XX, I'm sorry. And she also identifies as a woman. And it's a shame, and it's actually kind of interesting because I just maybe it was also Radiolab that I was listening to, because she came up in this Gonad series that I brought up. Basically her T levels were so high that they just said you have to be a man. There's no way that you're a woman, and they
That's
just banned her from international competition.
That's
Like,
fucked up.
and she's smashing records left and right. And that just goes to show you that even in sports, which people love to bring up, sports is the ultimate trans argument. And I'll say,
It's the dividing line. It's
yeah,
weird.
for a lot of people, that's the thing. I'll fist fight motherfuckers if they want to come and check me. No lie.
For what? For the sports of dividing
People
the
with
line.
stupid opinions, I'll fight you. That want to be like, oh, I'm cool with trans people, but sports, that's where I don't want to see no trans people no more.
The line is drawn.
Right.
Would you
because-
agree though that the WNBA can't compete in the NBA because of the shape of the body and how big and how strong that is?
Yes.
And do you agree?
It's not controversial. Yes.
Let some trans people go into that equation, and I guarantee you will start to see a difference.
Sorry. So yes, to your question, Tony,
Okay.
that men in general, what we call men, outperform women when it comes to.
So you would agree to keep them two separate?
No.
That's funny because you would agree that they
What's funny?
that you agreeing that the NBA and the WNBA is different because of the structural body of the man and the woman, but you don't agree that you should keep them separate in sports because of the disadvantage of the sex.
I'm saying that in general, we're making generalizations here, right? In general, a person who plays in the NBA is going to be better than a person who plays in the WNBA. But the best player in the WNBA is probably better than a lot of people in the NBA.
100%.
They're not going to, I don't think that the best player in the WNBA, I'm not going to fool myself. I don't think the best player in the WNBA is going to be an all-star in the NBA. Like, there might be an anomaly here and there. Physiologically, it's a tough situation, right? But the fact of the matter is sports are not fair. We have this view that sports are fair, but I'm 5'8". I'm a midget by many people's standards, and maybe that's not a nice word. I apologize. I grew up in a different place. We use a lot of different words. It may not be cool. I'm sorry, but I'm a short guy. Is it fair that LeBron James is 6'9" and I'm 5'8"? I'm a man. Is that fair?
I
yes
think,
or no, Tony? I just want to know, is that fair? No matter how much I practice basketball, will I be better than LeBron James? Could you ever imagine someone 5'8" being better than LeBron fucking James?
Maybe AI.
You're high off your ass.
But what are you saying better? Like, what are you saying better? What are you saying better? Like 1v1 battles? Like, what are you saying better? Like,
who is a better basketball player than
overall?
LeBron James?
So you're saying height makes you a better player in basketball?
No, I never said that. But it's a distinguishing factor that when you make things too different, yeah,
Not in
you're not
basketball.
going to compete.
Shaq
Not in
couldn't
basketball.
shoot for shit. And
couldn't shoot for shit.
he is one of the greatest basketball players of all
Center.
time. Like
He's one of the greatest
man is a
center of
legend
all time.
because
He is one of the greatest center of all time. One of the greatest
He's one
big
of the
men of all
best
time.
basketball players of all time.
But he was only
because the man is roughly the same size as Joey's old 6th floor walk up apartment in New York. They're just about the same height.
But I'm saying, like,
tower.
what
He's
he
a
was
fucking
saying,
giant.
he's like, I am 5'8". LeBron James is 6'9". Do you think that is fair, or he's a better player? No, there's people in the NBA who are not 6'9", who are really fucking great at basketball, who is really fucking good, who can compete. The height, if you're using
they might
height
be
as
6'6". I'm saying me at 5'8", will I, no matter how much practice I ever do, am I going to be better than LeBron James?
But better at what though? Like, what are we saying better?
Basketball.
In general.
Will I be a better player?
I could see, You're
high.
Yeah.
You're wrong. Name a 5'8" player. Name him.
Nate Robinson was
Better than LeBron James?
I didn't say better. I'm saying you said name.
That's the question.
Oh, well,
Who is that guy for the rap?
I retract.
No.
I'm
I'm saying that physiologically, LeBron James had parents. I unfortunately have 2 Caribbean parents. We're short fucking people.
And you're not
We are
saying
short
you're
fucking
not
people.
basing it
LeBron
off
James got the fucking genes. He's 6'8", 6'9". He's over here towering and dunking over people.
So Yao Ming was
that's
taller than him.
unfair.
Is Yao Ming better than him?
Huh?
Yao Ming
I'm
was
not
taller than
saying
him.
that height makes you
Oh,
better.
okay.
I'm saying that height is a distinguishing factor.
Yeah. He's not saying that the taller you are, the better you are automatically. But being tall helps more than being short when it comes to a game where you have to put a ball through a hoop that's 10 feet up in the air.
It also depends on the style, Mateo.
If LeBron James stands flat and puts his hands up, he could touch the rim.
It depends.
If
It depends.
LeBron James stands flat and puts his hands up, his hand is higher than I can jump to reach.
That's cool. But
I'd be lucky to high five the man by jumping as hard as I could.
No,
Yes.
in basketball, it's different. It is different. Yes, 6'9" is a fucking great advantage in basketball. Yes, but
Why is it a great advantage?
because you're fucking tall, you can defend people easier. I get that.
Yao Ming better than someone who's 6'9"?
No, he's not.
Okay,
that's my point.
So we agree.
I'm saying
it
that
sounded like you were trying
Kyrie
to peddle his
Irving.
arguments earlier, but you agree with me.
I'm saying Kyrie Irving can kill LeBron James in certain aspects in basketball.
He's not
Okay, so to bring it back though,
Kyrie Irving's also like 6'4". He's not short. He looks short, but he ain't fucking short.
Okay, to bring it back though, because we're going down a whole different other tangent. This argument in general is a bad faith argument though, because people are not switching genders to get an advantage in sports. I'm sorry,
no, absolutely,
but that shit does not happen. So getting all hung up over, well, if we let trans people get into sports, they're gonna start burp. Like the male athletes are gonna come into the women's track team and just dominate and set all their records. The instances of that happening are pretty damn low. No one is changing genders to get an advantage in sports. And if you are, you're probably a shitty human being.
No,
But
for sure.
is that allowed?
But it's undoubtedly happening, right? Like, sorry, we've been through this thing. I have woke views and I have what some people would classify as conservative views. I don't agree with that, but I know that that's how people would categorize me. I'm just saying, let's get down to facts, right? Let's look at the rawest information we got. When there's studies that show that a person who transitioned from male to female, they perform better at bodybuilding than people that are cis females or
for a little bit, because eventually that estrogen drops their testosterone levels and their natural muscle build from being biologically male. Because Tony, we're not saying that biologically male, biologically female is not a thing. Because it is. That's the reason why. I mean, you're right. Doctors do identify gender and like sex, rather, not gender, sex. And sex is important for medical procedures. Because if you have testicular cancer, you can't just pretend you don't have testicular cancer because you identify as a woman now or a trans woman or what. I mean, not that there's a difference between the two. Trans women are women. But just because you identify as a woman doesn't mean suddenly, boom, I can't get testicular cancer while I still have testicles.
Right. Yeah, no one on planet Earth is making that argument.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, I acknowledge that being a biological male, in quotes, because that's a very loaded term that a lot of bigots like to use to put down people in the trans community. I'm not trying to do that, but being a biological male infers some advantage. Even Mateo was saying for some period of time, what I saw personally, when I read into these studies, it showed that no, they just have a straight up advantage. Someone who was able to live 20 years of life with testosterone is basically someone who is allowed to take steroids for 20 years before ever being told, oh, you gotta like get off that thing. They're gonna have an advantage over people who weren't on steroids for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, and how long does that advantage last? That is going to vary from person to person. In general, they're going to perform better. Is what the study I read shows, right? But at the same time, to get to the root of the question, are sports fair? Because that's what people are upset about. Like there was the one person who transitioned to being a woman, and then they were competing in the UFC. And people were like, oh, she broke, or no, they're being bigots. So they're saying that dude broke someone's skull, a man fighting a woman, right? Like that's what they're saying. But the reality is, most of these things are just a bunch of people looking from the outside in. How many of these people have ever laced up gloves and punched someone else in the face? How many fights result in broken skulls or eye sockets? They don't know. All they want to do is make a headline. And the fact of the matter is, the person who transitioned is not the best fighter. They've lost to other cisgendered females. So there are people that are real women, in quotes, as people would say, that have whipped this man's ass, as people would say. Again, these are not my words. I'm saying, right, I think these are very bigoted ways to categorize these people. But this is how people categorize them, and there are multiple cisgendered females that have beat up this trans woman, and she has all the advantage by the standards of what people are saying. And so I just don't think it's so cut and dry, because when you try to get down to brass tacks, when you're saying what makes sports fair, you're basically just going down to, hey, if you got a penis and you're competing with other penises, then it's a fair sport. But the fact of the matter is, the one track star who's a female by every fucking measurement, apparently she has too much testosterone, which is a brand new report that they want to pull out, and they want to expunge all her records and get rid of all the good that she's done in her sport, because they're saying that she's a man. And in her conservative country, all men have decided to never date this woman because society has painted her as a man. So now she's like, well, whatever. I guess I'll be a lesbian to find some kind of companionship. So she's now dating women because men in her country view her as a man, because internationally they don't want to allow her to compete because ultimately she's too good at her sport. Not because she's a man, not because of any other reason. She's too good. Before they found out that her T levels were high, they already wanted her out because she was breaking records.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes to show that when it comes to sports, which in my opinion is the most complicated argument when it comes to trans people, because ultimately it's like, yo, treat people how the fuck they want to be treated. Like, I know Tony for many, 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 many years. I met Tony. I called him a different name. Years down the road, I found out people call him Tony. I called him Tony. That's the name I call him now. And even still, we bump into people that call him a different name.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? I have a name, right? But everybody calls me Pucho, right? That's a name that my mother, my parents, my family have given me. I go by Pucho. Like, I like the name, whatever.
Is David the only one here that actually goes by his first name, that is given name in everyday conversation?
Yeah.
Because I don't go by my given name either. I go by my middle name.
Yep.
David is the only one.
What a lot of people don't recognize is that my Twitter name is basically David. I looked up the meaning of David, and it's uncle and beloved. So like, though
So
uncle
your
beloved
uncle dad
is basically David. Like, in which is why I use it.
Yeah. No.
So
Names are complicated. Genders are complicated.
A lot of
Sex is
complications.
complicated.
so we got off track here though. Is the point that the question is flawed in and of itself?
Well,
What makes a man
what
is
is a man? I don't think what is a man is flawed. I think it's important to know what society views as a man. It's a hard conversation because when you ask what is a man, you get into gender, you get into sex, you get into science, which is like now you're trying to define because sex was easy. You got a penis, you got a vagina, but then it turns out, wait, there's this thing called chromosomes. There's other thing, chromosomes get fucked, and then it's like you're now into the biological realm where the shit, everything is very complicated. It's not as simple as people like to make it seem.
Here's my criticism of the week for conservative people. Man, y'all hate science until it comes to being able to discriminate against someone. The second you can discriminate against someone, you're like, oh man, look at the science of this issue. It's like, shut up. Shut up. Look at every other bit of science that you ignore because it's inconvenient to you.
It all goes back. Earlier we was talking about Doey and Tony themselves brought this conversation up. They were saying how black people are the majority of the people that happen to be in prison for marijuana charges. And then Doey told the personal story where a white friend of his was able to get off on a not necessarily a charge, but on a process that he and a friend of his who are people of color had to endure. And the fact of the matter remains is that in this country, the way that we police different groups of people are different, even though based on the studies, white people use drugs at similar rates as black people.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they're policed differently. It gets granted, I'll grant you that there are also more felony type of things like murders and things like that happen in urban areas where there's plenty of people of color. And again, these conservative these conservative people that hate all science and statistics, they're happy to whip out their stats in these conversations to say, well, look, black people commit the most crimes.
Yeah.
Hispanic people are doing this and that. And then when it ultimately it's just, people are poor and poor people will do fucked up shit to be not poor.
Yeah.
And we should fix the problem instead of addressing the symptoms of the problem. And this, again, is a major, major deviation. I don't know. Maybe we should call this shit the switch or the fucking deviation. We just go on fucking tangents.
The grand switch.
Honestly, here's my take on it. I don't think this is the original intent with the name of the podcast. But I think that what it has become, because this has been our running theme every week, is there's some kind of social or political issue that we talk about. I think that the One Up podcast name has to do with us bettering ourselves and one-upping ourselves and trying to grow and learn and become better. Because you have to. Like, that's what you have to do every single damn day. I've got my own gender biases and race biases and all kinds of terrible, shitty voices in my head that I have to work through every single day. And it sucks because I wish that I had just been like born this person that doesn't see race and doesn't see gender and like just is able to be this progressive, amazing person. But I wasn't. And I was raised in a certain way, and that way had some good issues and it had some bad issues, and values change in society. And I am I'm an artifact. I'm a time capsule of the 1980s style of raising people for my particular people. And I'm trying to be better every single day. I'm just trying to be better. I'm trying to one up myself. And I think that's where our podcast name is evolved into now.
I agree. Completely agree with you.
That's a thing. I like that. How you feel about that, Tony? You want to one up yourself? I've never thought about that one. I just always want to one up y'all weak ass motherfuckers.
I've always one up myself in so many instances.
But you're better than everybody, so in reality, you're one up in everybody.
Sometimes he one ups himself with some Bengay and the big fan and some personal stuff.
Un abanico.
Un solo abanico.
I've one up in life so many times that I don't think I can one up it anymore. But no, that was a great thing to yeah. That's a one up, nigga. That's a one up. That's how you one up. You make these claims and you stick
Damn,
with
you
it.
one upped all of our views at once.
I've one up so many times. I no longer need to one up.
Mateo said, this one up isn't about one upping everybody, but I'm gonna one up everybody with my opinion on the one up. All right,
I
shut
one
this
up.
whole shit down. I'm gonna one up myself, but since I'm better than all of you motherfuckers, I'm one upping everybody at once.
That's how strong I am in my one up. I'm un one upable. If that's even a thing.